So you didn't catch our little chatter. Still have 120 seconds. Hello, Gary and Jody. Oh. Yes, Bob D'Ambra is here with me.
Hello.
Hello. Just very quickly before we get started, hi Frank. I wanted to ask Jody and Gary, we usually do the updates. We like to put the things you're here for up front. But since the previous item on the agenda is the financing part of it, I assume you would want to hear that also anyway.
Yes.
Okay. And we're going to leave it in this order.
How do you hold it?
It's easier to hold it here, because otherwise it moves around.
You hold it on the gold part.
It's like your glass, right? You don't hold your glass in the base, do you? That's control.
Actually, there's a place to chat where I can chat with Wendy if I need something, I think. Let's see how this goes. Chat. To Wendy.
Okay, Karen, I think we're ready to go.
Okay. I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Santee Ynez Community Service District regular board meeting for November 18th. Oh, okay, and it is 5:30. So let's go ahead and get started. Wendy, if you could do roll call.
All right, we have Director Beard,
Here.
Director Muller,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Here.
Director D'Ambra,
Here.
and Director Redfern is absent.
Thank you, Wendy. Because we're doing this meeting remotely, it's going to be a little different. And I'm going to skip the pledge, even though it's one of my favorite parts of the meeting. I don't think it makes sense to do it in this fashion. So what I'd like to do now is move on to public comment. And of course, this is a comment from the public that is not on the agenda. So if anyone here would like to comment about something not on the agenda, this would be the time to do it. I see there's a few people outside of the board and council and Wendy and Jose here. So is there anyone that wants to make a general public comment at this time? And Wendy, you'll let me know if you see a hand go up, but it looks like there are no public comments. So we can move on to the consent item agenda. We have all received our packets and had a time to review this. Are there any questions about the dashboard, the previous minutes? I think that we needed to change a date on the last minutes, Wendy.
Yes, at the last page where it says the next meeting will be November, it says the next meeting, it says it will be December, but it should say November 18th, and I've made that change on the formal copy. So we just need to include that in the motion.
Okay, and so at this time, if nobody else has any comments or changes, I would like a motion to approve the consent agenda with mention of making the one change of the date of the next meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so Director D'Ambra has made a motion to approve the consent agenda with the change to the date of the minutes from December 18th to November 18th. And Wendy has done that. So we have a motion and a second.
Yes, so we have a motion by Director Beard and a second by Director Muller. We'll do a roll call vote to approve the consent agenda with the change to the next meeting date. We'll do
Wendy,
a-
that wasn't me. I think that was Bob that. did
It
that.
was Bob.
Oh,
Bob
it's
made the
Bob.
motion.
Okay. Sorry.
I just wanted to sound like David.
So we have a motion by Deambra and a second by Director Muller. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Jones,
Yes.
Director Deambra,
Aye.
Director Beard,
Aye.
Director Muller.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Very good. Now we're going to go on to the action items. And the first action item, 6A, has to do with alternative funding for options for Horizon Drive Mainline project. I think, is that Wendy?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so at the last board meeting, the board of directors asked staff to come back with 2 to 3 options of different financing options for the district to fund the Horizon Drive mainline project. And so what I did is I contacted CSDA and they gave us a quote for 15 years at 2.95 interest. And then I called Brandis Tellman, which is a financial institution that primarily does bonds. And because the loan amount is too small, we weren't able to do bonds. But they did reach out to CSDA financing as well, and they were able to get a 20-year term at 3%. And then they got the same quote for the 15 years as we did at 2.95%. Then she also reached out to a couple different other investment people for funding the $700,000 at 20 years and 15 years. And they did come back with a 20-year at 3% and a 15-year at 2.95%. But the cost for those was $55,000 for the 20-year and $60,000 for the 15-year. So that just throws those two right out of the ballpark.
Excuse me.
Because that's way too expensive.
That's the loan origination fee?
Yes.
Yes, and the cost for like all the documents and all that. And
Okay.
then I also reached out, which we had done prior to the SRF loan. It's the Rural Development Agency loan, which is also another government agency that gives government loans. And they will do they'll do up to 20 years. The costs are undetermined, but it's still a lengthy government bureaucratic process similar to the SRF. And then we also have to do a NEPA, which is an environmental process for the Rural Development Agency. And then I reached out to a company called iBank, which is another governmental loan, which it's easier to get an iBank loan through the process instead of the SRF or the RDA loan. However, they do have a lot more costs, and the guy actually told me that he would look at our financial statements to see if we initially qualify. He said, but really you don't want to do it because it's so expensive, because we'd have to pay 1/10 of 1% charge at the close of escrow, and then 0.03% annually on the loan balance. So those are kind of significant costs that we don't necessarily need to do. And then we have 5 Star, which is borrowing our $700,000, putting our money from reserves into a collateral, and we can't touch that money until the loan's paid off. And that includes a $4,000 additional cost for loan processing. And the interest rate would be 2% plus if we earned interest on the money sitting in the account, it would be 2% plus whatever interest rate that was. We did talk to the financial Tuckfield and Associates, and he said, that would be a great deal, except for when we talked to Rick, that we're not allowed as a special district to borrow money that way. So that really leaves out 5-Star as well. And then I had reached out to First Bank, which is a local bank here in town, to see if there was some kind of loan that we could get from them. And she hasn't called me back. We would have to use the building as collateral, but again, that legally we can't do that as a loan option. So really our two options are the 15-year CSDA and the 20-year CSDA. One thing about the 15-year is it's better for the district because we get, we pay off the loan sooner. However, 20 years is better for the customer, and we are doing the installment payment plan up to 20 years for each Horizon resident if they choose to do that. So do you guys have any questions?
I got questions. These are all fixed interest for the length of the loan, be it 15, 20, or 30 years. Is that correct?
They only go out to 15 or 20 years, and yes, they're
But it's
fixed.
all fixed. It's
Yes,
not adjustable.
and with CSDA, we're not allowed to pay them off until the 8th year and the 11th year.
So otherwise, after 8, there's a prepayment penalty if we do, right? Up to
There's
8.
no prepayment penalty. They did waive that.
But
Well,
it's just
wait,
not allowed?
no, wait a minute. If we can't pay it off in the first 8 years, they charge up, they penalize you for that. But after the 8th year, we can pay it off early with no prepayment penalty. Is that correct?
No, you cannot pay it off in the first year to the 8th year because it's not allowed. We have to have the loan for that amount so they can receive their money for giving us the 700,000.
Okay, on the 8th forward, then we can pay it off if we desire, and there is no prepayment penalty. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So we just got to hold it for 8 years so they can generate some income up their interest, up their loan.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All of them are like that?
The 2 CSDA loans are like that. Yes.
Hold them both at 8, identical 8. After 8, we can pay it off?
No, the 20-year term would be the 11th year we can pay it off.
Okay, so it's basically half.
Yes.
Do any other directors have a question? Do you have a question, Director Beard?
Yes, what would our payment be on that on a $700,000 loan? Did you ask
For the 20-year or 15-year?
both?
Let me look, hang on. So the CSDA 15-year at 2.95, the payment would be $58,424.75. And the 20-year at 3% would be $47,051.
That's a month?
That's an annual payment.
Annual, okay, annual, that's what I wanted to, okay.
Yeah, I'm breathing again. I'm breathing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had it figured, 700,000 is about what most people pay for a
Yeah.
starter home around here. So that's,
Yeah.
I'm basing the payment to be around what most
Yeah.
people pay when they get into a starter home.
Yeah.
Okay, Wendy, so these are very competitive. What about the loan origination fees? Typically they're called garbage fees up front.
There aren't any as far as I know.
No fees, no out-of-pocket expenses in the beginning, recording fees, nothing like that?
No. We had a similar loan for the building back in 2004 with the same company. It'll be Mutual, I think it's called Mutual Financial. And his
Municipal
name
Finance.
is Bill Morton. What was that, Rick?
Municipal finance.
Oh, Municipal Finance. Oh, I had that all wrong.
Rick, did you have any comments or questions, something that the director should know?
2 comments. One is it's interesting, but there are lots of limitations on a district's ability to borrow money. There are constitutional limitations on borrowing, and then there are statutory limitations and statutory authorizations. All of the authorizations carry with them various requirements and various restrictions. And as you work through those restrictions, you end up ruling out most of the loans that the district would otherwise consider. Typically, when a public agency finances a project like this, If it's a more expensive project, it goes to bonds, general obligation bonds, revenue bonds, Melrose bonds, or it does a special assessment, something like that. That's the more typical way to finance, and there are voter approval requirements and things like that. Just to go out and borrow money, if the district is not doing it on a short-term basis and for an amount that's a relatively small percentage of its annual revenues, you can do it in those situations. If you're going beyond that for a larger sum, or particularly for a longer term, it's hard to satisfy all the requirements. And some loans can't be more than 5% of your annual tax revenue. Some can't be more than half of your annual budget, on down the list. So as I worked through all of those restrictions and applied it to the various loans that were being considered, we ended up ruling out most of them. So I think that what that leaves us with is what districts traditionally do in a case like this, and that's get an SRF loan or through CSDA finance. And the CSDA finance will be structured as a lease purchase, or basically a lease purchase transaction through Municipal Finance Corporation, which circumvents, creatively navigates around the restrictions that would otherwise apply to a loan, but the end result is the same. So, I would say those are the options to consider. Either, go with the SRF loan, and that process is continuing, or also apply for a CSDA loan on those terms. The other comment I would have is, it seems to me at least that a 20-year term makes more sense, because your installment payment policy allows property owners to pay back over a 20-year term. And if you've got a shorter term and people on the installment payment plan, you're going to have to come up with the money on your own to make the loan payments, while you wait another 10 years or 5 years, another 5 years, if it's a 15-year loan, for those other payments to come in. And it's actually, probably worse than that, because everyone's not going to sign up and join an installment payment plan right away. It may be down the road before they sign up, and then they'll have 20 years from that date. So for those reasons, I think it makes some sense to go for a longer term, maybe even if the cost is higher, but that's what your board has to balance.
Do any directors have any questions for Rick or Wendy, or any other comments before we hear and see if Jody and Gary have anything that they want to ask or comment?
I would like to ask staff if they could put a comparison between the state revolving fund and the CSDA, basically as close as you can, a 20-year amortization loan, the rates, any upfront fees, if there is any, just a side by side. I think it's reasonable to assume we're going to probably go there based on what Rick had to say for 20 years, and some of the other ones are so far out in left field as far as getting the money, or the criteria that we as a district don't qualify. So I would like to match CSDA with the state. And so we could look at that, because I think we're probably going to end up narrowing it down to one of those two based on what you've said and what Wendy's presented. Does that sound right?
Well, I would like to comment on your comment, Bob. I think we've kind of done that. I think we were going full steam ahead with the state thing, and we got very concerned about hidden costs. So you can do a side by side, and the state loan looks good until you start reading all those mandates and environmental stuff. So I think that, that may not be necessary for staff to do. I think we've delved in pretty deep.
You're correct, Karen.
Okay, manager, Jose
Sorry,
Acosta.
Jose Acosta, general manager. You are correct. Initially, when we presented this in July, we presented the SRF loan versus the CSDA loan, and presenting a cost savings of a little less than $100,000, but not realizing the cost of engineering, cost for environmental studies, and other costs that came into it, which was starting to bite into that $100,000 savings based off the realization of the comparisons. But what we can do, Director D'Ambra, is continue on with SRF, but we wouldn't be able to do a comparative side by side until we got a definitive rate from the SRF, the state, because we don't have a definitive rate until they approve our application.
Well, you'll have some number within a quarter, maybe pushing it to half. You'll have some numbers. You got to have some numbers to work with. And again, we're going back to that $100,000 was all hidden in strangulating us, maybe wrong term to use, encapsulating us that once we're committed, they could throw stuff at us, or prior to the $100,000 was a hidden charge.
Not necessarily
Take that and
hidden.
you use it against the CSDAs. Like we discussed, maybe we pay a little more, we get a lot more as opposed to the state. I'm just very suspect of dealing with the state. I don't think that should have been pushed up way up at the beginning, the $100,000 fee that they wanted. That should have been thrown out at the very beginning of the presentation. Instead, I think I caught that and brought that up to you guys. So I wasn't happy with that at the very beginning because I had to fish that out. That should have been on our presentation. Hey, there's a $100,000 charge for this up front. That wasn't there.
So real quick,
That's
there
why
is
I'm
no,
asking now, sir, that Matt, you do a little more research, you dig a little deeper, and we find out where the commas are, where the question marks are, and we get a reasonable estimate from them. Like a pre-qualification loan. It's done every day in real estate, and in business, I can't see how that would be a problem if staff went there and said, this is what we want to do. Give us some numbers to work with. Obviously, we can't hold you to them because things change every day, but give us your best estimates today. I think that's due diligence that management and staff needs to take and present to the board.
Okay, but just, I'd like to hear from our general manager, Mr. Acosta again, because I think that we went into that topic pretty deeply, and I don't want to go around in circles too much. I would like to hear from the homeowners that are in the audience and see if they have questions or anything that they would like to comment about this portion of it, where we're getting our funding.
When she's putting it.
Well, this is Gary speaking. I think we would enjoy a 20-year repayment versus a 15. I might be dead in 20 years and it wouldn't matter. The other thing is, are you still considering Stadium Drive? We haven't heard a thing about that. In fact, it's been quite quiet for the last couple of months. I was almost going to call Frank because I know him, and I saw him driving to work the other day, and we didn't quite catch up to him because his Porsche is so fast. Anyway.
We did talk about it at the last couple of meetings, that Stadium was not interested at this time.
Okay, we never got any notice of meetings. I mean, I guess we could put it on our calendar, but we never got any email or anything.
We can do
It has
better.
nothing to do with us.
Well, this is third Wednesday of every month is our regular meeting, and that's what was covered. But because this project is so important, I would like to thank you for bringing that up. We should contact the people on Horizon, since this is an important thing. I think that would be appropriate. We have your contact, and staff can do that, and they're happy to
Okay, good.
remind you that we have a monthly regular meeting and send you the agenda, because Horizon Drive is on every agenda until it's done right now.
Good.
Okay, and how about anyone else, or Jose or any other directors have any comments?
I
Yes,
do have another comment.
Okay, Mindy?
With the CSDA financing, they have locked the rates in for 15 days. And if we are interested in pursuing CSDA, they would like us to sign a good faith document, which is just signing the quote that is included in your board packet, I think. And then one of the issues is they say the rate's only good for 60 days and they want to fund it within 60 days. I think if we sign the good faith estimate, they would be a little more willing to extend that out. But there is a possibility that if we don't sign it, they won't hold the rate. And if we do sign it, I don't know how long they would extend a hold on that rate.
Maybe Mr. Battles can weigh in here. Do you see that as a problem if we sign the good faith thing? If we take a vote and decide to move forward the CSDA loan tonight, Is there
I
a
haven't-
problem with that?
I haven't seen the good faith document. I don't know what it says. Does it, it sounds like
It's-
it doesn't commit the district.
No,
It's
it doesn't
just a
commit the
formal-
district financially. It just kind of shows that we're interested, and it's included in your packet. Either the 15-year one or the 20-year one. It's actually on the back of the staff report, the last page of the staff report. So it says the CSDA Finance Corporation.
Okay,
So it says note terms are based upon lease being bank qualified. Purchase option amount is exclusive of rental payment due on the same date. Interest rate quote is valid for an acceptance within 15 days and lease funding within 60 days.
okay, yeah.
So
I
it's
have a
just
question.
signing that little document right there.
Okay, I have a question and a comment.
Weird.
I don't see interest rates going up anytime soon. That from what my past experience is, and especially in this economy, I don't think they're going to raise interest rates. How soon are we going to need this money? Jose?
Okay, so we're anticipating starting the work in June. That's the anticipated date. We're gonna start releasing hopefully the RFP in March, get approval in May, and approve the contract and start construction in June. So that's when
Okay.
we would start needing the money.
How long? And so this loan, they want to fund within 60 days. I think we're jumping the gun a little bit.
Right.
That would
And-
give us the money in February-ish. So probably, yeah, a little premature. So what you're saying, Director Beard, is you would think that it might be the smarter play to let CSDA know we're very interested, but it's just too soon for us to sign something because we're not going to need the money for 6 months.
Right.
And then they can come back and say, well, we'll extend it, or they can say, call us in February or March and we'll see what interest rates are then.
Right.
Then we will have
Frank, what
also
do you-
heard from the state of California because we did proceed with that application. The work was done. Am I right there, Mr. Acosta?
Yes, you're correct. So, real quick, if I can make some clarifications on the comments made earlier. The 100,000, there was no hidden $100,000 fees with the state loan application. What happened was there was a $100,000 savings based off the interest from the state through CSDA, based off of the initial interest rates that were presented at the July board meeting by our previous interim director, Mr. Dornalis. And he also mentioned that the process would be lengthy and require additional resources, additional personnel working on this, which could bite into that $100,000 savings. And that is what has happened so far. I don't have an exact figure of how much has been bitten into that $100,000 savings, but I can provide that. I can look it up and provide those figures as well. And you're absolutely right. If we do hold off till February, we can have a better side-by-side comparison to say, okay, this is what CSDA is giving us, and this is what the state's going to give us. And then we could present that to the board and have more definitive numbers to present so that there's more clarification for the board to understand on which process to go.
I think that makes a lot of sense because however we arrived at our understanding now, the point is that the one that is a lengthier process, we will know more about when we're ready to commit to the CSDA, which, clearly is my favorite right now, but I like the side-by-side that can happen only after our loan has been evaluated by the state, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
To
And,
Dave's point, you make, money is not going to go up in value. Maybe by the grace of God, it might even be lowered in come after the holidays. It's hard to read the future, but it's not like the economy's strong like David described. It's actually kind of like the ball's in our court, the way I kind of see it. There's no reason for things to improve as far as costing of the interest going up. So I think we're in a pretty neutral place there as far as not committing to the time factor they requested to get things going on this. I think that's our advantage.
I agree with all of that. I just would like to add the caveat that interest rates can shoot up also. I agree it's very unlikely, but any of us that were alive in the 1970s know that that things can change really fast and it is a pretty turbulent time, but I feel like we are not risking much to wait to lock into a rate. I don't know, Mr. Beard? Director
Frank,
Beard,
what's your
Huh?
take on it?
who are you asking?
Frank, Mr. Mueller.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I liked Jose's comment. You know, if we don't need the money for 6 months, I mean, I'd rather have that comparison of the SRF and the CSDA.
Right.
Honestly, I think you're spot on, and I honestly don't really feel like the interest rates are going to do anything drastic in that amount of time.
Right.
So
That's what I was thinking.
Okay, now getting back to the staff recommendation then, because I think we've discussed this. I think that, so we want to direct staff to proceed with what we just talked about. Just keep writing out the, what is it, SDR application process while we wait. CSDA loan looks like what we're going to like and seems the easiest and the best fit for us, but we don't really know that till we hear the outcome and if we've heard back on our loan that had to be submitted by December 31st. So this is, we don't need to take action other than to just say carry on. Is this correct, Mr. Battles?
You're muted.
You muted.
Can you unmute him, Wendy?
I'm unmuted.
Okay.
So we have, yeah, if there's no urgency, if you don't see any urgency to move forward with the CSDA loan, then there's no action you need to take tonight. I think staff has the direction they need and the processing of the SRF loan will continue. And then at some point in the future, you can elect to start moving forward with the CSDA loan. The alternative, I guess, would be to approve moving forward with the CSDA loan, but just hold off on submitting the, what I think Wendy refers to as the good faith document at a later date. And then it wouldn't have to come back.
The
with that
only direction,
authorization.
I'm sorry. The only direction would be to just encourage Wendy to keep doing what she's doing, which is working with CSD and explain to them, not ready to sign the good faith because we won't need the money that soon. And we're waiting to see one other, we want to compare with one other source. And they may come back with a counter offer. They may just say, fine, thanks, call us when you're ready. So we don't need to do anything there. So I think maybe we should move on to the next thing, if there is any more, which would be the project updates for Horizon Drive. So that would be our general manager, Jose Acosta. If you can please take 6B.
I will. Thank you very much. Real quick, this is the project updates on the Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan and the easements and the engineering services that have been provided and that we're anticipating for this project. So the loan application for the SRF loan, the final documents needed for submittal are 100% completed plans and specs, which we sat down with our district engineer, Mr. Mike Kilborn, this last week, reviewed them, provided feedback, and he's going to compile those and have those to me by next week so that we could submit them on the loan. And that will allow us to have completed all 4 sections within the SRF loan requirements. At that point, the 1st of December, I will be contacting our representative at the state, speaking to her, seeing what has she reviewed our application and get any final feedback on any documents that may be missing, omitted, or need to be adjusted. I don't want any excuses or reasons why by December 31st, we have an incomplete application or they come back at us and saying we're missing something. So I'm anticipating contacting her December 1st and being in contact with her throughout the month to ensure that December 31st, we have a complete application in and we receive the maximum points that we can. And real quick on that application, I think one of the fees for $100,000, I'm not sure, Mr. D'Ambra, if you were speaking about the climate action plan, that was going to be a cost of $100,000 if we had to complete one and submit it along with this application, which the board decided we didn't want to do that and we would take our chances trying to receive the points with the LAMP plan through the county, which is still a possibility that we do receive adequate points to be approved for the application.
Okay.
So that's what go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, what other updates are there right now besides the financial ones? What else is going on with Horizon Drive?
So we have the easements. Miss Kathy Springford of Hamner and Jewel has maintained communication with staff regarding the appraisal process. And on November 4th, Kathy provided the timeline below on the easement procurement process, this is verbatim attached from her email on her timeline of how we're looking to do the easement procurements. The appraisal report was due Friday, November 6th, and we haven't received that yet, so we're a little behind on that still. And assuming that we receive it as planned, the offer would be prepped in pre-approved templates and provided to staff for approval. And just a reminder that the board did direct that staff, either district council or general manager can sign on the offers that will be presented. The owner will have 30 days to consider the offer, during which time we will be contacting her every week or more to discuss the offer with her and to negotiate on it. At the end of 30 days, the district may proceed with the condemnation process, starting with the notice of hearing to consider adopting a resolution of necessity. She's anticipating that this process usually takes about 30 days. And if the resolution of necessity is adopted, this matter proceeds with District Council, Mr. Battles, into the court action for condemnation. And her anticipated timeline is about 4 to 6 months out if we go to condemnation due to COVID delaying court cases at this time. On the Hart project, she's expecting the same time frame with the easement acquisition, except that we will use an in-house valuation of the easement rights to develop the offer package. And we're anticipating that that offer would be accepted within that 30-day window, and hopefully we wouldn't have to go to condemnation or discuss condemnation at that time. With the Larson property, the same timeline, but we also got approved Hamner and Jewel to get an appraisal on the property, which would be delivered by December 25th. Assuming that they receive the offer as expected, we will have to offer the package to us by the end of the year. And once approved for offer, the time frame and process will be the same as Lee, saying once we make the offer at the end of the year, Ms. Larson would have 30 days to respond and approve. And if they don't, then we would be able to proceed with the resolution of necessity, and Mr. Battles, we would have to probably go to court for condemnation on that property as well.
So that would kill a June start.
It could delay the June start by a month if it does take 4 to 6 months. Mr. Battles said he anticipated that it could go quicker, but because of her comment about the COVID, he's not for sure if it would take 4 to 6 months as well. Am I right there, Rick?
Yeah, it typically would be much quicker than that. And so I was a little surprised that she was talking about such a long time frame to get a court date. But again, I think that's because of COVID, and I don't have any recent experience with court schedules. So I guess maybe it doesn't really surprise me when I consider COVID that it's taken as long as it is.
My daughter's law office has moved, all of their court cases have been moved by the court to fourth quarter 2021. So everything's pretty backed up. But that sounds like that's pretty legit. So the sooner we get this stuff in motion, the sooner we get it done.
Yes,
and
and
Take a while.
This is the kind of court hearing that might be possible to handle virtually. You're not going to have a jury and expert witnesses and that kind of thing in all likelihood, because we would only be looking at getting the immediate right of possession, and then the issue of how much we pay for the easement can be resolved later.
Okay, so you don't anticipate that this is going to mess up our start date?
I don't.
Okay, good. Okay, then can we move on to the other updates that you have for us, Mr.?
yes, ma'am. The last update I have is on the engineering services. Our district engineers provided staff with a couple updates on the engineering services. He has submitted, as I mentioned, 100% plans and specs for staff to review and input. We've given that information back to him, and hopefully we'll have those in our hands at the end of next week. And Mike has also provided draft bid documents for construction on the project. These documents will be reviewed by staff and legal counsel for input. So the bid documents, there's about 96 pages to the documents. We reviewed them. We sat down with Mike, gave some feedback. Rick's reviewing them as well for the legal aspect on those. And we're hoping to have those finalized for presentation to the board early next year, hopefully by February, because like I say, in March, we want to get the RFP released and out and start the bidding process in March. So the bid documents will have been reviewed and hopefully finalized, ready for review by February.
Okay, and I would also like to go to the Waples and see if they have any questions or comments while we're on this topic. Gary?
Just get it going as quickly as possible. We'd appreciate it.
Okay, and we will make sure that, you know, that you are reminded, but basically every Wednesday between now and done, every third Wednesday of the month, this is going to be on the agenda, but we will remind, we need to, do we have a concurrence there with the board that we should send out special reminder of our meeting to the?
Well,
people?
we would need the at least the Zoom meeting notice.
Yes, true. Okay,
I will put it on my calendar, but I won't have the Zoom unless you send it to me.
no, I agree. Wendy, is that going to be a problem or you think that will work? I don't know where Wendy is.
No, we can do that. But it is the same Zoom number every
Okay,
single time.
okay, then I'll just put it on my calendar and use the same Zoom meeting.
Okay. Third Wednesday of every month.
5:30.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm gonna leave now. Do you have anything, Jody? See you later, guys.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so I think then now we're all done with that update. So now we move on to 6C, which I believe is going to be our general manager,
Yes, ma'am.
Costa.
Yes, ma'am. So 6C is approve a request for proposal for the RFP for professional auditing service and direct staff to advertise. So in 2013, the district awarded a 3-year contract to Charles Fiedick and Company to perform the auditing services for the fiscal years 2014-15, 2016 through 2016-17. Prior to the conclusion of the first awarded contract, Charles Fiedick and Company changed to Fiedick and Brown. And in October 2016, the district awarded a contract with Fiedick and Brown for the next 3 fiscal years, which went through this past fiscal year of 2019-2020. Government code provides that commencing with the 2013-14 fiscal year, a local agency shall not employ a public accounting firm to provide audit services to a local agency if the lead audit partner or coordinating audit partner having primary responsibility for the audit, or the audit partner responsible for reviewing the audit has performed audit services for a local agency for 6 consecutive fiscal years. So basically it's just saying that you shouldn't remain with the same auditing firm for 6 consecutive years unless that auditing firm has the ability to change the lead auditor to perform the duties for the district. And based on the government code stated, the district has the option to seek auditing services from a new firm and award a 3-year contract for conducting auditing services. The government code also allows that the same firm can continue providing the services if a new lead auditor is designated. Fiedick and Brown have provided high quality service with their auditing services, and the district has worked well with them. But the district can elect to award a contract with Fiedick and Brown as an alternative to advertising and releasing an RFP for a replacement firm. The district would be probably prudent in sending out the RFP just to see how many firms we get that respond. But we just want to note that if we did decide to stay with Fiedick and Brown, that is an option as well. But it'd be prudent to probably release the RFP and see how many firms we get to respond.
Everyone understands why we want to change auditors. It's required that we do it. That's just what the standard is. But what is the best practice, Rick?
Yeah, the best practice is to change auditing firms every few or every several years. That a version of that best practice was actually put into the code relatively recently, which was the one that Jose made reference to, where it says you have to change auditors every, whatever that is, every 6 years, unless the lead auditor, the person responsible for it within that firm changes. So it's a little bit of a refined version of what's, in my experience, generally considered to be best practices. And I guess I would say if the statute is saying it's okay now to stick with the same auditing firm with the internal changes, then it would probably be okay for the district to do that.
Be okay, but not the best, because the reason that
well-
we do it is to protect ourselves, correct?
Yeah, there is a trade-off there, because there are advantages to staying with a firm with a proven track record. You know, they're going to do a good job because they've done a good job in the past, and there's some efficiencies associated with them being familiar and less of a learning curve. On the other hand, they might become too comfortable and overlook things and do things the same way every year just because they've always done it that way. And the other concern is that they become friendly with the staff and there's more cooperation than is healthy for a completely impartial audit. You address some of those current concerns by changing who the responsible auditing partner is. I don't know whether you address all of those concerns. So, I guess that's as much as I can say. There are advantages and disadvantages of staying with the existing firm. It historically has been considered best practices to change auditing firms every few or every several years, but the code now specifically says it's okay to stay with the same auditing firm if there are those internal changes with who's responsible for what.
I guess I was getting at the risk that you run, and sometimes it's nice to just get a fresh look at things, especially in a small office. It does get really friendly, and I think that we have proven that we're very financially responsible, but sometimes it's good to get a fresh look. So I would like people to consider that. And I also had a question. When we talk about auditing, is it strictly a financial audit, or can we also audit phone records, electronic devices? Can we do a full audit on our office since, we new board, new management? Could that be part of the audit? How much is this just strictly limited to our finances?
It's strictly limited to our finances. I think we'd have to do something special if you guys wanted to do that.
Okay, well, it's something that I have wanted to do for a while, and this seemed like an opportunity.
So real quick, Karen and Rick, I agree with both of you guys that we should release this RFP if the board wants to go in that direction, just so that we can get some fresh auditing firms to submit their proposals, and we have the option of being able to switch them. So releasing the RFP is not going to change anything, whether we stick with Fiddick and Brown or we select a new auditing firm.
Director Beard, do you have something to add? This is kind of an area of expertise for you. Oh, unmute.
There you go. I'm going to make a motion that we go ahead and submit the RFP.
Do we have a second?
I'll make the second.
Hey, Wendy?
Okay, so we have a motion by Director Beard and a second by Director D'Ambra to approve staff to send out and advertise for the RFP. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Beard?
Aye.
Director D'Ambra?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Director Muller?
Aye.
Motion passes.
If I can make one comment on the RFP, one thing I didn't mention is that there's a schedule and a timeline provided on the staff report there. So you can review that when it would come back to the board. We also would want to take it to a finance committee for review of the proposal prior to going to the board. And January 19th would be the day that we would take it to the board to approve the firm. So that way we can contact the firm right after that.
Okay, that sounds good. And Wendy then you would schedule the meeting with the finance committee.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Then so we can move on from this and go to action item D, formation of an ad hoc committee for the purpose of reviewing the policies for conducting a general manager evaluation and make recommendations to the board regarding the general manager evaluation process. There isn't a staff report for this, so would it be appropriate for me to take the lead here?
Sure.
Okay, the general manager is, according to our policy, to be evaluated in December. And that works. Mr. Acosta is, he's been with us since July. This will be his first review. So I would like to be on that ad hoc committee, and I would propose that Director Deambra be on it with me. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion, that's fine. For
Okay,
you, you two.
okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Wendy?
Okay, so we have a motion by Director Beard and a second by Director Muller to appoint Director Jones and Director Deambra on the ad hoc committee for the purposes of conducting a general manager evaluation and for reviewing the policies for conducting a general manager evaluation and make recommendations to the board regarding the general manager evaluation process. We'll do a roll call vote. Director Beard,
Aye.
Director Muller,
Aye.
Director Jones,
Aye.
Director Deambra.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I could just remind, for payment of the ad hoc committees, if we can just ensure that Wendy's aware of the meeting dates, that way we can approve, or we can get the submittals for the payments for those meetings, please.
Thank you, Mr. Acosta. Okay, we don't have informational items on the agenda this evening. We do have reports to hear from the manager. That is first up. So, Mr. Acosta.
I have a few things just to update the board on. Wendy and I have been getting, reviewing financial software, which is something that the district we're going to propose for the district to review and possibly purchase. It would be for fund financing, which would take us away from using QuickBooks, which is not user-friendly for fund financing. It was a recommendation by one of the audits. It's not something that we need to do, but it is a strong recommendation. So we'll be bringing that to the board for discussion at a later date to discuss financial software and purchasing of that. I mentioned a couple months back that we were reviewing job descriptions for the field crew. So we have those finalized, and I'm going to get those compiled, cleaned up, and submit those for review as well. So that way, if the board has any questions on any of the changes to the job descriptions, we can address those as we're anticipating any retirements or any employees who may leave the district. And we have those job descriptions readily available to send out for recruitment. And my last update is on the monitoring wells on Horizon Drive. We are going to be that process, and those drilling of those wells will be taking place next Wednesday, the 25th, and we'll have both wells drilled and completed on Wednesday, the 25th. So that's what I have.
Have the residents been notified of that?
That's a great question. I don't believe they have, Mr. Beard. I think Wendy will work on sending that out this week, and we just got the word today that that's the date that they were going to be out there. So we will send that out right away. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to legal counsel's report. Thank you, Mr. Acosta.
I have a couple things to report on. One is there was a recently decided Court of Appeals case involving the Summerlin Sanitary District, almost one of your neighbors, certainly one of my neighbors here in Santa Barbara. This is a case Lucinda Mollett versus Summerlin Sanitary District. So in this case, the district held a public hearing to increase its service charges by 3.5%. The plaintiff, Ms. Mallett, didn't attend the hearing. She didn't submit a protest. She didn't submit any evidence against it. But then she filed a lawsuit in which she alleged that the rates were established without regard to the actual wastewater that's discharged by a particular parcel. The proportional cost of providing the service to that parcel also wasn't considered. And they based the rate solely on the equivalent residential units without regard to the proportional cost of providing service. And basically what she's saying is, and what the problem was, is that the same rate was charged to a single family resident and an apartment unit. And the position of the plaintiff is that a multi-family unit like an apartment uses 40% less water than a single family residence. And so there should be a lower rate there, and the cost wasn't being spread proportionally as required by Proposition 218. In defense, what the district said is, well, Mallet didn't come to our hearing. She didn't submit any evidence. She didn't exhaust her administrative remedies. The idea there is the district had no opportunity to hear what her complaint was, had no opportunity to address her complaint. And so you can't go into court until you first give the agency an opportunity to address the concern and take the appropriate action. And that way you don't clog up the courts, and there's greater efficiency there. And what the plaintiff said in rebuttal is that a protest hearing on a Prop 218 claim didn't provide her with an adequate forum for addressing the issues anyway. They were just talking about the rate increase, not the underlying methodology or model. So there was no point in her pursuing that. And part of the problem here was that the plaintiff filed what's called a writ of administrative mandamus, which means you're only having the court consider the record that was considered by the public agency. And it's a pretty streamlined procedure where you put in all the documents that were before the public agency, you submit a brief, and the court makes a decision based on the written record and some brief oral argument. But you don't have witnesses, you don't have cross-examination, you don't have the opportunity to admit any new evidence. All you can go on is what evidence is in the record. And that was the kind of action that was filed here. And yet, in the court hearing, the plaintiff tried to admit this expert testimony, declarations, a report that said apartments use less water than houses, and the court didn't let that come in. Court of Appeals said, well, yeah, this was filed as an administrative mandamus action, a writ of administrative mandamus, but it could have easily been something else. It could have been a declaratory relief action, in which case all this new evidence could have come in. So they decided not to penalize the plaintiff here just because she picked the incorrect method for naming her suit and characterizing her suit. She said, the court said, here the adage concerning a rose or a duck is apt. And that one kind of caused me to scratch my head a little bit. And I Googled, what adage is there regarding a rose or a duck? And what I ended up figuring out after a minute or two of analysis is that they're saying a rose by any other name still smells as sweet, writ of administrative mandamus versus declaratory relief. Or if it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So the fact that it was called something different didn't change the underlying rights. So I guess that's the case. I think it's going to be appealed. And it's just interesting to note that, really the reason I bring this up is our district has the same rate for apartments and single family dwellings. They're both assigned 215 gallons per day, and the rate is the same. So that isn't the case for all agencies. Different agencies handle it differently. There is a big study underway, a statewide study by California Association of Sanitation Agencies that's measuring actual flow from various sources across the state. And this hasn't been done in decades. So we'll have updated modeling input data that will tell us, what is reasonable to assign to different categories of users. But at this point, this case will probably go up on appeal. If it gets upheld on appeal, then we'll be vulnerable because our rates don't have that kind of proportionality. So it's just something to pay attention to.
The 800 homes, the 800 roughly customers that we have, very few are apartments, but we have, I believe, probably about a half a dozen small apartment units over businesses and a few duplexes in town. But most of ours are pretty similar single family homes here, varying size and cost. But yeah, thank you.
We do have a studio apartment rate that is lower than a regular apartment rate.
Right. Yeah, for a studio. And there's something else in that category also. Oh, is it an ADU or no? What is it?
Yeah.
A second unit.
Second unit.
Yeah. Okay. So then the other thing I was going to mention, back in July, I reported to your board that for the first time ever, a court ruled in favor of a public agency on a California Voting Rights Act case. And that was good news. That was a Court of Appeal opinion. Tonight I have bad news, and that is the Supreme Court has depublished that opinion and has decided to take it up for review and render its own decision on that. So for now, there still aren't any reported cases where a public agency has won on one of those claims. So that was a good case for public agencies when it comes to the Voting Rights Act. And now we don't have that case for the time being.
And are you talking about how it applies to district voting? Is that the thing we
Yes,
were
yeah,
talking about?
district-based voting. It was a good case because it said that in order, it isn't enough just to prove that there's racially polarized voting in that you've got a minority group that would rather have a different director. You also have to prove, this case said, that the outcome wouldn't have been different. And so if your district-based voting only increases minority representation from, in this case, 14% to 30%, that's not good enough, because 30% still can't elect a director. You need a majority vote. So you need to prove that there would actually be a change in the outcome if you went away from the voting at large. And then you also need to prove that the district-wide voting was put in place with the purpose of discriminating, not merely with the knowledge that discrimination might result. So again, both good holdings from a public agency's perspective, and that case is on hold now.
Okay, well, we will see how it plays out. And let's move on to the Secretary Treasurer's report.
Okay, all I have is that staff has the draft financial statements and we're reviewing those. And Feedick and Brown should present them to the board in December or January.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Let's move on to director's comments. Director Beard, do you have any comments? And, oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry. Do we need to do a finance committee meeting before the end of the year?
Yes, Wendy's going to schedule that.
We won't skip, it probably won't be the end of the year. It'll probably be the beginning of it'll be the first part of the year once we get the RFPs back for auditing.
Okay.
Okay, and how about you, Director Mueller?
I don't have anything.
Okay, Director D'Ambra.
I had heard there was a complaint filed to this district recently. Content, subject, I do not know. Was there a complaint? Somebody sent out some letters?
I want to stop right now because it could get into an area it's not agendized, and it could involve things that would not be appropriate to talk about. But I would like at this time, I mentioned it earlier in the meeting, I would like to audit everything. I want to see where we're at as an agency. And I do think I was made aware of something, and I think that all directors should have the same information that I have. That's my point without discussing it any further. And I don't know where we'll go with that, but I would ask council to make sure that all of the directors get the same information that our attorneys and staff and people that we work with have. The directors should have the same information.
Yeah, my plan is to send out an email on that just so everyone's up to speed.
Okay, and then that covers that. I don't have anything beyond that except I guess that's it. So if nobody has a problem with it, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Hey, okay, we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Yay, thank you guys. Okay, Wendy?
Okay, we have a motion by Director Mueller and a second by Director Beard at 6:32 to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. So 6:32, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. This is a little rough on Zoom, but we
need to do a roll call vote.
Oh,
Jones, Director Jones,
I blame Zoom. Aye.
Director Mueller,
Aye.
Director Beard,
Aye.
Director D'Ambra.
Yes,
All right, motion passes.
Very good. Happy
Thank
Thanksgiving.
you. Thank you.
Thank
all.
you. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.